So in an effort to convince all of his supporters who will be voting for Gary Johnson to fall in line and support Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders has been launching numerous attacks against Gary Johnson. So Ross Story explains, Gary Johnson, any restriction on campaign spending violates the First Amendment, the Monday tweet from Sanders' staff read. Translation, billionaires will be free to buy elections. On the basic economic issues, trade, minimum wage, climate change, pay equity, Gary Johnson's positions are disastrous, an October 16th tweet from Sanders read. In an interview with Now This, Sanders explained his rationale for asking his supporters to unite around Clinton instead of Johnson. Around 80% of the Democratic National Platform is in harmony with what he and his campaign stand for, Sanders argued. So when you ask me, where do we go from here? In a sense, it means that we implement this, he said. Sanders went on to warn against complacency, urging his supporters not to just sit back and relax once Clinton is in office. Now, I'm split on this because when it comes to Gary Johnson's policies, I do agree with Bernie Sanders that on many issues he would be disastrous, while I agree with him on some domestic issues like pot legalization and social issues and also foreign policy issues. Well, when it comes to the economy, I mean, he supports trickle-down economics. He supports the TPP. And so unlike other libertarians, he's not a protectionist. So in many ways, I think that Gary Johnson would be a very harmful candidate, and he also doesn't want to fight for climate change. So I'm vehemently against these types of economic policies that Gary Johnson wants to implement. But the problem with Bernie Sanders' argument and the rationale for trying to persuade people to vote for Hillary Clinton is that it assumes that the Democratic Party will actually carry out the policies they said they will in their platform. This is not a legally binding document, and with the WikiLeaks release of John Podesta's emails, we now know that they decided to offer these phony concessions to us to make us, quote, think that we won when they don't actually lose. So that's problematic to me. We already knew that they implemented these policies. Hillary Clinton adopted the idea of tuition-free colleges at public universities just to get Bernie Sanders to drop out and endorse her. So we know that she actually doesn't want to fight for this. So when you base the reason for voting for Hillary Clinton on this, it's not going to be very persuasive, and he doesn't really get that. And one thing that Bernie Sanders can understand, and I know that deep down it still bugs him too, is that his supporters find what she did during the primary unforgivable. When you collaborate with the DNC to literally destroy your opponent, that's not forgivable. And let's not forget that she benefited suspiciously from the election fraud. One report estimates that Bernie lost 184 pledged delegates to election fraud. So this is something that is very frustrating. We feel as though Hillary Clinton is an illegitimate candidate because she won the primary by cheating. And here's the thing that Bernie Sanders and many other people don't get. Bernie Sanders had many independent supporters. Now, independents can swing both ways in terms of policy. So it's not surprising that many of them are supporting Gary Johnson because many conservative Republicans and libertarians, I'd argue, probably supported Bernie Sanders because they wanted him to get money out of politics because both parties are plagued by money in politics. So I would support a Republican that was anti-establishment, that was sane, that wanted to get money out of politics. So that's probably why they supported Bernie Sanders. And in supporting Gary Johnson, that's not too surprising to me. Now, when it comes to Jill Stein, there's really no arguments that you can make against Jill Stein. And the problem that I have is that Bernie Sanders, as well as other people, are saying you shouldn't protest vote, you shouldn't vote your conscience, as Hillary Clinton said that we should do, because, you're going to hand the election to Donald Trump. But here's the thing, that encourages more and more Democratic Party loyalism, and Hillary Clinton is up in the polls. So yes, we don't want to be complacent, but when you just encourage blind support for Hillary Clinton and saying you should vote for her no matter what, that's a problem. So if the Democrats like Hillary Clinton and the aggregate party were really worried about a spoiler like Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, here's what they can do. Implement actual electoral reform and put in place ranked choice voting across the country. There'd be no spoilers. Or we can abolish the electoral college so that way it's just the popular vote. That would make it so that way these swing states wouldn't determine the election. So you can't get mad at people for voting against Hillary Clinton after what she did. She's running in a so-called liberal party as a conservative, and that's something that's not going to resonate with a lot of people. So if they want to vote against Hillary Clinton and support Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, I think there's no problem with that. And by saying that, the Democrats are going to actually be obligated to carry out the platform that they're proposing, It's bullshit. And I think Bernie Sanders knows it, but he sees Donald Trump as the lesser of two evils. And that's fine. But I just think you got to be honest about it.